It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
You know, folks, I try to apply common sense when things get a little out of control, the rhetoric, the static, the accusations, such as what's taking place in Minnesota. Minnesota seems to be ground zero for the most radical movements in our country. It's not an accident. If you know a little bit about history, or if you want to know a little bit about history, these things do happen. They do happen. And the Democrat Party and the radical left is involved in an awful lot of it. Ever hear Bloody Thursday, May 15, 1969? Protest at Berkeley's People's Park. The governor was Ronald Reagan. He sent in state National Guard troops and police to crush demonstrators. Demonstrators who've been violent, who've destroyed things, and refused to leave. And that resulted in dozens of injuries, hundreds of arrests, and the death of James Rector. The protesters had converted a university-owned vacant lot into a community park, and Reagan said it was a direct leftist challenge to property rights. He vowed to take action. He sent in the National Guard. I'm giving you the short version. And then the police in Berkeley. Today they probably wouldn't do it. And he famously said, if a bloodbath was necessary to restore order, let's get it over with. And police used live ammunition, gun pellets, tear gas, birdshot. 13 hospitalized, 3 with punctured lungs, 1 had a shattered leg. And the president, or then the governor, defended his actions. That we had to maintain law and order against radical, violent demonstrators. Back then it was the New Left. It was the New Left, 1969. And there were a variety of student groups, many of which weren't headed by students. Students for Democratic Action, and they gave themselves all kinds of names. And they were violent. Just as they were violent 2 summers ago in New York, on university campuses, in LA, University of California, Berkeley. And governors have to face these things from time to time, as do presidents. Why do you think we have an Insurrection Act? An Insurrection Act that was passed over 200 years ago. Now, what's going on now that's a little different is that this is being supported fully by a major political party, the Democrat Party. Because the party's been radicalized. It is a Marxist Islamist party. It is a party that rejects Americanism. It is a party that rejects constitutionalism. It's a party that rejects law and order except their own protection by the Capitol Police and private security. So let's just cut to the chase. What's going on here? This is a party that let in perhaps 20 million illegal aliens. They didn't care if they were mass murderers, rapists, burglars, sexual predators. They didn't give a damn. They didn't care who they were or where they were from, and in fact flew them into our country. Almost 500,000 people flown into our country on your dime. They changed the immigration laws by practice. Joe Biden violated the Constitution. He would not ensure that the laws were faithfully executed. That's in the Constitution. We had a radicalized immigration system with almost no barriers to anybody coming into the country. And it's made a difference. It's changed the country. We have more Islamists here than we've ever had. And it is a huge problem. We have spies that were brought into this country. But massive numbers of criminals. And people who come into our country and jump right into the welfare system. When, of course, none of that is supposed to happen. You're supposed to be self-sufficient or you don't come into the country. So we start from there. President gets elected in a landslide. Among other things, he says, I'm going to secure the border and remove these people. He secures the border, and now he's trying to remove these people, particularly the criminals. That is, people who've committed additional offenses. And he's getting resistance from the same party that brought them in the first place. And these governors, whether it's Newsom or Pritzker or Walz or Hochul or whomever, and these mayors, whether it's Fry or Mandami or whatever, Bass, they take the side of the criminals. They take the side of what is now the violent rioters. This is different than before, and there's another difference. Much of this is being funded by billionaires, dark money, from Soros and his ilk, but also by foreign governments, as Peter Schweitzer's book points out. And so now you have the men and women of ICE. They're not used to dealing with this sort of thing, where you literally have a militarized political party with governors and mayors in the Democrat Party urging people to obstruct federal law enforcement, telling local cops they may not assist federal law enforcement, refusing to assist federal law enforcement in identifying the locations of the worst of the criminals. You literally have governors out there who are gaslighting the rioters. So the Democrat Party, working with the billionaires, working with the foreign governments, this is their new constituency in many respects. And they're counting on them getting amnesty. They're counting on them staying in the country. They're counting on the Supreme Court on birthright citizenship. All in order to empower the Democrat Party. It's in my book on power. One party rule, so they can never lose. So they'll have more members of Congress. So they'll have more electoral college votes. Not from American citizens, from illegal aliens. And then the children of illegal aliens, who will also be hostile to the American system. Ready-made for the Democrat Party. Now, two things about these shootings. Number one, I and others have said that the Democrats, with the language they're using and the position they're taking, they're going to get people killed. Well, they have. They take no responsibility for it. In fact, they're all righteous about it. That it's ICE's fault, that it's Kristi Noem's fault, that it's Trump's fault. They've created the violent, riotous situation. They have no interest, the media have no interest in who's behind it, who's organizing it. None. Zero. Because that destroys the narrative. This is the way they wish to win the midterm elections. This is the way they expect to take the presidency after Donald Trump. Because they're wrong on the issues. They can't win on the issues. This is a violent, radical political party, an alien party in many respects, that has never embraced Americanism, ever. Takes the side of those who attacked the founders and the framers. They want to change the Supreme Court in order to change the Constitution. And the list goes on and on and on, does it not? The woman who was killed in Minnesota, without getting into the particulars, almost hit an ICE agent with her car. She was asked to stop. She wouldn't stop. One ICE agent reached into the car to try and turn the car off. She sped up, almost killing the man, apparently hitting the man because he had internal injuries. But very provocative. If a cop pulls you over and you're speeding, and you speed off, and you almost hit him as you speed off, you know that could lead to a deadly situation. You know you're going to be chased. And you know if they catch you, they're going to have weapons drawn. And in this most recent case, they keep talking about we have video of this angle, that angle, another angle, another angle. I go back to basics. I am not questioning the Second Amendment. I am not questioning the right to bear arms. But who brings a gun and ammo knowing full well that you're going to be involved in a very provocative situation, that you're with a number of people who have as their purpose obstructing ICE, obstructing federal law enforcement, who's trying to detain criminals, foreign criminals? You certainly have contributed to your own endangerment. But who does that? And now we have governors. The governor of Oklahoma, we got to really change this. Republicans. I think Abbott said something a few hours ago. We got to change the way we're approaching this. We got to do. The Democrats are talking about defunding ICE or changing the whole thing. So what? So you can't get criminals? They think this is easy when you have local law enforcement, state law enforcement, local and state officials stopping you or not assisting you? It's extremely difficult. And then on top of that, there's a story in Fox. This whole thing's organized. Organized. Let me pull this up for you. Let's see if I can find it right here. All right. Far left network that helped put Alex Preddy in harm's way, then made him a martyr. This is Fox News Digital. The skirmish that led to Saturday's fatal shooting of an agitator by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis and the response that followed were driven by a complex network of far-left organizations with a wide range of causes, Fox News Digital investigation found. You won't find this on Drudge. You won't find this on Mediaite. You won't find it in the New York Times, the Washington Post, AP, Reuters, nowhere else. A coordinated web of encrypted chats, street alerts, and tracking of ICE abductors. This is all funded. In a sophisticated database reviewed by Fox News Digital shows that agitators were already mobilized at the scene where 37-year-old Alex Preddy was killed minutes before any shots were fired. And then you got guys on CNN and elsewhere saying polls. See, the American people don't support what ICE is doing. The American people aren't being informed about what's taking place either. ICE and Border Patrol agents were there to arrest an illegal immigrant criminal, and Preddy and others were there outside a donut shop to meet them as part of a strategic pattern of organized interference with enforcement operations.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
You know, I'm grateful for this platform that I have, Talk Radio, so I can respond to some of the things and the way they're being reported in the news. And so one of these things I want to respond to obviously involves you, Mr. and Mrs. America. I know you're frustrated with what you're watching on the news. You're frustrated with the reporting. Because if you listen to this program, you actually know the facts behind the events that are taking place. The organizations, communist and socialist organizations that are preaching violence and obstruction of our law enforcement. We're trying to apprehend illegal aliens and criminals who are beyond illegal aliens who've done other things. Then you see a left-wing mayor of Minneapolis, a left-wing governor of Minnesota, or gaslighting this sort of militia, these mobsters, and then you hear Hakeem Jeffries say that he wants to impeach Noem and all the rest of it. And you're seeing reporting even by people who should know better. It just seems like the mob moves in one direction. But even if I'm the last man standing, I will object to what's taking place. The undermining of our federal Constitution, the undermining of our immigration laws. Let's go through this point by point, this immigration battle and the war against ICE. Number one, do not arm yourself with a gun and ammunition, extra ammunition in fact, when going to any protest, let alone a protest organized by violent communist and socialist groups, where you know the goal is to confront and obstruct federal law enforcement, or any law enforcement for that matter, from carrying out their lawful orders. That's number one. This is not a Second Amendment issue. You have the right to carry your weapon if you have a permit, like you have the right to drive your car if you have a driver's license. But how you conduct yourself with a gun or a car matters. Number two, do not interfere with law enforcement when you know the situation is dangerous and can easily escalate if you attempt to obstruct them. In fact, doing so is a crime. It has nothing to do with the First Amendment, free speech, or the freedom of association. Number three, when federal law enforcement is attempting to arrest an illegal alien, especially an illegal alien who's committed violent and, in some cases, heinous additional crimes, do not interfere with or otherwise obstruct law enforcement from apprehending these fugitives. Again, this is a crime. And moreover, you might get harmed, you'll likely get arrested, you might even get killed. Number four, American citizens, you, Mr. and Mrs. America, have a right to live in a safe and secure neighborhood. You have a right to expect local, state, and federal law enforcement, in the case of illegal aliens, to protect you. And that includes removing these individuals from your communities, where they're not supposed to be. So when governors and mayors order state and local law enforcement to stand down, they are protecting illegal aliens and criminals, not you, Mr. and Mrs. America. And they are creating an incredibly hostile environment. And furthermore, the political demagoguery and unhinged, full-throated gaslighting by these politicians is toxic. And they intend it to be toxic. Number five, federal immigration law sets forth scores of bases for apprehending, detaining, and deporting illegal aliens. These laws have been on the books for decades, passed by Democrats and Republicans. Indeed, the fact that a foreign individual has come into the United States illegally is enough of a legal basis for their deportation. That's the law, and that's been the law from the beginning. Number six, sanctuary states and cities are violating the federal Constitution. This is not about federalism. The federal government has plenary power over immigration. It's right there in the Constitution. It has, always, and that is as the framers intended. When a state or city declares it is a sanctuary for illegal aliens, these governors and mayors of these states and cities are declaring that they're going to usurp federal law, the law of the land, and their oath of office. They are unlawfully attempting to nullify the federal Constitution and federal law, and they are using the same arguments used by the Confederate Democrats as they seceded from the Union. They have no right or authority of any kind to make such declarations, let alone attempt to enforce them. Number 7. Are states now free to pick and choose which parts of the federal Constitution and federal law they will or will not honor? Why limit the subject matter to immigration? Now, this is how a nation tears itself apart. We already went through this during the Civil War. The answer is they absolutely do not have that authority. Period. Number 8. The Democrat Party is fueling this latest assault on the federal Constitution and rule of law. It waved in tens of millions of illegal aliens in violation of the federal Constitution's requirement to ensure that our laws are faithfully executed. And in this case, the Supremacy Clause. It bulldozed through one federal immigration law and rule after another to pave the path for massive illegal immigration. It seeks to increase Democrat Party representation through the census, which still counts illegal aliens for the purpose of assigning congressional seats and electoral college votes. And it seeks to fundamentally alter the entire citizenry through birthright citizenship. To allow this to go unaddressed is to lose the country and establish a one-party Democrat Party autocracy like they've done in California, but nationwide. Number 9, for the Democrat Party, preventing the deportation of illegal aliens is the second part of their two-part strategy. First, wide open borders, then ending deportations. This is, as I've said many times, revolution by immigration. Now, it is essential for them that they weaken ICE, if not defund it altogether, as some of them proclaim, and undermine all parts of the immigration infrastructure. For the Democrat Party, the party is more important than the country, which is why you see the fusion of the Democrat Party with the socialist and communist organizations that are behind these violent confrontations with ICE. To put a fine point on it, the Democrat Party and its power come before the country. Now, of course, the Democrat Party threatens to shut down the government unless the president and congressional Republicans accede to its demands, slash DHS funding, tie the hands of ICE, they call it reform, of course, and fire the DHS secretary, who they threaten to impeach if they win the midterm elections, along with the president, by the way, and they will blame it all on the Republicans. Remember, the objective is Democrat Party through agitprop. Propaganda tied to action. They've learned well from the communists. The language, the propaganda, the sloganeering, the projection. Number 11. Shame on those Republican officials who are joining the chorus demanding surrender in the face of all this, given all that's at stake. Sometimes you got to be tough. You got to muscle through these situations. You've got to win the day. In the end, eventually the people will know and they will celebrate it. That's what's called leadership. Bending to the mob means they're bigger, louder, more violent mobs in the future. That's what it means. You did not see 1% of the outrage from the Democrats or their media when American citizens were murdered by illegal aliens. Where was the coverage other than on Fox and talk radio? You saw almost nothing. The names of those in the last 2 weeks who've been shot and killed, unfortunately, sadly, tragically, obstructing law enforcement, are seared in the minds through repetition, through endless reports about who they are. but the names of those who are murdered by illegal aliens. Not just 2, but scores and scores. Their names are not known, are quickly forgotten. They're not even mentioned by the Democrats, and rarely by their media. The little boys who've been sodomized, the women who've been raped, the stores that have been robbed, the people who've been shot or murdered with machetes, the gang members, whether they're from Venezuela or El Salvador or wherever, the drug pushers, the fentanyl pushers. Those names you don't know. And yet these are exactly the kind of people that ICE is trying to capture, detain, and deport.
Mark Levin. You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
I don't know where all of you are, of course, but it is bone-chilling where I am. I think for half the country, too. I've never seen temperatures like this on a consistent basis. Oh, my goodness. You know, I didn't have enough time yesterday to get to something that I wanted to play for you, so I'll do it at the top of the hour here. And there are other things I do want to get to. And in many ways, I view this program as alerting you to things that are going on in our communities, going on to our country and with our country, so you're aware of it. And not just to bring you news and philosophy and economics, although we'd like to do that too. And I want to do that after I play this for you. Justice Antonin Scalia was one of the greatest public officials in our history. Not just Supreme Court justices, public officials. And unfortunately, he died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of, I think it was 80. And he is greatly missed. And he was not just a practicing Catholic, he was a strong believer in God and Catholicism. And I believe one of his kids is actually a priest. But I wanted to play something for you, and I'll play it now. Something he said in 1997. 1997. At a Holocaust memorial speech. And you'll say, Holocaust, didn't we cover that yesterday? That's not the point. I want you to listen to what he's saying about Germany and about the West and Western civilization in the 1920s and 30s and 40s. This is a brilliant, brilliant man. So let's take a listen. I hope you'll continue to listen. Turn up the volume. Call everybody around the radio. Here we go. Cut 10, go.
I was profoundly honored to have been invited to present remarks at this annual ceremony in remembrance of those consumed in the Holocaust. But it is not, I must tell you, an easy assignment for a non-Jew to undertake. I am an outsider speaking to an ancient people about a tragedy of unimaginable proportions that is intensely personal to them. I have no memories of parents or children or uncles or cousins caught up in and destroyed by the horror. I have not even that distinctive appreciation of evil that must come from knowing that 6 million people were killed for no other reason than that they had blood like mine running in their veins. More difficult still, I am not only not a Jew, but I am a Christian. And I know that the anti-Semitism of many of my uncomprehending co-religionists over many centuries helped set the stage for the mad tragedy that the National Socialists produced. I say uncomprehending co-religionists, not only because my religion teaches that it is wrong to hate anyone, but because it is particularly absurd for a Christian to hate the people of Israel. That is to hate one's spiritual parents and to sever one's roots. When I was a young man in college, spending my junior year abroad, I saw Dachau. Later, in the year after I graduated from law school, I saw Auschwitz. I will, of course, never forget the impression they made upon me. If some playwright or novelist had invented such a tale of insanity and diabolical cruelty, it would not be believed. But it did happen. The one message I want to convey today is that you will have missed the most frightening aspect of it all if you do not appreciate that it happened in one of the most educated, most progressive, most cultured countries in the world. The Germany of the late 1920s and early 1930s was a world leader in most fields of art, science, and intellect. Berlin was a center of theater, with the assistance of the famous producer Max Reinhardt. Playwrights and composers of the caliber of Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill flourished. Berlin had 3 opera houses, and Germany as a whole no less than 80. Every middle-sized city had its own orchestra. German poets and writers included Hermann Hesse, Stefan George, Leonhard Frank, Franz Kafka, and Thomas Mann, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1929. In architecture, Germany was the cutting edge with Gropius and the Bauhaus School. Musical composers, it boasted painters like Paul Klee and Oskar Schlemmer. Musical composers like Anton Webern, Alban Berg, Arnold Schoenberg, Paul Hindemith. Conductors like Otto Klemperer, Bruno Walter, Erich Kleiber, and Wilhelm Furtwängler. And in science, of course, the Germans were preeminent. To quote a recent article in the Journal of the American Medical Association, in 1933, when the National Socialist Party came to power in Germany, the biomedical enterprise in that country was among the most sophisticated in the world. German contributions to biochemistry, physiology, medicine, surgery, and public health, as well as to clinical training, had shaped to an important degree the academic and practice patterns of the time. And clinical training and research experience in the great German clinics and laboratories had been widely sought for decades by physicians and basic scientists from around the world. To fully grasp the horror of the Holocaust, you must imagine, for it probably happened, that the commandant of Auschwitz or Dachau, when he had finished his day's work, retired to his apartment to eat a meal that was in the finest good taste, and then to listen perhaps to some tender and poignant lieder of Franz Schubert. This aspect of the matter is perhaps so prominent in my mind because I am undergoing currently the task of selecting a college for the youngest of my children, or perhaps more accurately trying to help her select it. How much stock we place in education, intellect, cultural refinement, and how much of our substance we are prepared to expend to give our children the very best opportunity to acquire education, intellect, cultural refinement. Yet those qualities are only of secondary importance to our children and to the society that their generation will create. I am reminded of words written by John Henry Newman long before the Holocaust could even be imagined. He wrote, "Knowledge is one thing, virtue is another. Good sense is not conscience. Refinement is not humility. Liberal education makes the gentleman. It is well to be a gentleman. It is well to have a cultivated intellect, a delicate taste, a candid, equitable, dispassionate mind, a noble and courteous bearing in the conduct of life. These are the connatural qualities of a large knowledge. They are the objects of a university. But they are no guarantee for sanctity or even for conscientiousness. They may attach to the man of the world, to the profligate, to the heartless. Yes, to the heartless. It is the purpose of these annual Holocaust remembrances, as it is the purpose of the nearby Holocaust Museum, not only to honor the memory of the 6 million Jews and 3 or 4 million other poor souls caught up in this 20th century terror, but also by keeping the memory of their tragedy painfully alive to prevent its happening again. The latter can be achieved only by acknowledging and passing on to our children the existence of absolute, uncompromisable standards of human conduct. Mankind has traditionally derived such standards from religion, and the West has derived them from and through the Jews. Those absolute and uncompromisable standards of human conduct will not endure without an effort to make them endure. And it is to that enterprise that we rededicate ourselves today. Those standards are in the Decalogue, and they are in the question put and answered by Micah. What doth the Lord require of thee but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God? And for those 6 million Jews to whom it was not done justly, who were shown no mercy, and for whom God and his laws were abandoned, may we remember their sufferings, and may they rest in peace.
What a remarkable human being Scalia was. I don't think anybody could say it the way he said it. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, this program is a bulwark against this spreading evil that's taking place in our country, with the Marxists and the Islamists, and yes, the neo-fascists. Some of you may ask, some of our affiliates may ask, why do you spend so much time on this? Why do you take on these Islamists and these Marxists and these neo-fascists? Why do you talk about Carlson and Mandami and the others so much? Because I fear the day may come when we are silenced, when we won't be able to do it. And I played you 9 to 10 minutes of Antonin Scalia, the late great man, because I couldn't put it any better. Germany was the most advanced society on the face of the earth, virtually in every respect, the sciences and the arts. And look what it became. And as he's mentioned and alluded to, it spreads beyond the Jews. Tens of millions of people died during World War II. But half the Jewish population on the entire face of the earth was exterminated. And listen to these voices today, whether they're podcasters, whether they're politicians, whether they're imams or the organization CAIR. You should be very, very worried about this.
Mark Levin. The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
That's very strange, Mr. Producer. All the links to my articles fell out. Can you send that again? All during the night, and not by night, I mean when this program's over. Usually starting around 10 p.m. into 2 p.m., sometimes 4, 5 p.m., 8, 9 p.m., all through the rest of the day. I send links to Mr. Producer. And hopefully he's not awake every minute of the night. I don't think he is. But you're not, are you there at 2, 3, 4 in the morning? I don't want your wife to be angry with me. Anyway, so he puts them all together on a sheet for me every day before the program, about an hour before the program, and I go over them, and I sift through them to see if they trigger some kind of thought process, or I want to go into a different area or deeply into a different field, or if I want to talk about them. And so some of you have been interested in how I do that. That's how I do it. And I spend a tremendous amount of time preparing for this program, just as I spend a tremendous amount of time preparing my monologues for Fox. Nobody else writes my stuff. I can't read other people's stuff, and I don't want them to put words in my mouth. There's plenty to talk about and think about, or you shouldn't be in this business. So that's what I said. They dropped out. In other words, my list dropped out. Now, the president has, according to the New York Times here, and I want to bring you up to speed on this as well. Let's see. New York Times. I know we have this somewhere. I'm working on it. Let's see here. He's threatened Iran with another massive armada that's on the way, and he's pressed a set of demands. And among those demands is to give up your nuclear pursuits, to limit the number of ballistic missiles they have, and one other one. But it doesn't involve the people of Iran, so I thought it wasn't comprehensive enough, as far as I'm concerned, because that's the big issue right now. And this regime needs to be toppled. Khomeini needs to be destroyed. I just feel like negotiating with Khomeini is like negotiating with a Hitler figure. Now, when I use Hitler, I mean it in the true historical sense. Not that all these politicians are Hitler. I'm talking about Khomeini, who's been slaughtering people left and right, and who wants to conquer the world. That's why he wants nuclear weapons. It's also why he's an Islamist. And that's why Islamists like Khomeini, like the Third Reich, like Nazism, and like Hitler. Have you noticed the overlay? Well, there's a reason for it. That's why the Mufti, who led the so-called Palestinians, now they weren't called Palestinians then, not until 1965, but nonetheless, those individuals sought to meet Hitler, got to meet Hitler, worked with Himmler, among others, and offered to kill as many Jews as possible in the Middle East, and offered up 5,000 men to fight alongside the Nazis. Now, of course, Hitler believed in the Aryan race, and he didn't think very much of the Arabs at all. So they never did much with them because he hated them too. But that said, He embraced the Mufti's ideas, of course, and his viewpoints. And so my view is, you're not going to get a peace in our time with Iran. You're not going to be able to appease Iran any more than Neville Chamberlain was able to get peace in his time, which is what he said he had, appeasing Hitler. Some people and regimes are so evil and clearly have no intention of helping humanity, that is peace, that they have to be destroyed or they're going to destroy us. Let me put it to you this way. The ultimate confrontation between the regime in Iran and our country is going to come. Not because of us, because of him and his sons. It's going to come. So shouldn't he come on our terms rather than us playing defense? Taking out the nuclear sites, that was very, very important. But we haven't taken out him and that regime. And we have 90 million people or some who agree with us, who live under his police state's iron fist. This isn't neoconservatism. This isn't warmongering. This isn't any of that stuff. This is peace-mongering. And I don't think diplomacy-mongering and negotiating-mongering is the answer to any of this. Now, one of the things in the latest report from the New York Times is that the Islamo-Nazi supreme stupid man, Khomeini, has rejected the demands of the United States. And so I think this is the pattern we've seen before with President Trump, that he will view this as leaving no other option but to address this. How we address it, I don't know. I hope we address it in a way that's intended to obliterate Khomeini and everybody around him. Otherwise, it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop. They'll be back with a 10,000-mile intercontinental ballistic missile, with a nuclear weapon, 10 nuclear weapons, maybe 100 nuclear weapons, which we now think North Korea has. And I said to you last night, and I'll say to you again, does anybody believe a man who would kill if he had to 1 million of his own people wouldn't kill 1 million Americans with a nuclear missile? In fact, for him, his Islamist ideology requires him to destroy everyone and everything that is an obstacle to their barbarian 7th century mentality. That is the only way Allah can be fulfilled, is the elimination of everyone else. Either their enslavement or their elimination. That's the ideology. I didn't make it up. That's what they say. I didn't make it up. And so they even slaughter Muslims who don't agree with them, or they slaughter their own citizens, like you see happening in Iran. And you also see happening now in Afghanistan. The Taliban made up about 14% of the population. The Islamist regime in Iran is a small percentage. It's a minority of the population in Iran. The Persian people are Western people. They are educated people. They are advanced people. They haven't been brought up to hate America and hate Jews. They're not brought up like the Palestinians have been brought up, so-called. So we shall see what happens. But we've gone from keep protesting. We're going to come help you. We're negotiating on these 3 points. Now they've rejected these 3 points, and I feel we're getting to the point where the president will be comfortable using the military against this regime. That's where I feel we are. That's where I feel we are. But negotiations with them isn't going to get anywhere, even if we have a quote-unquote peace in our time. Individuals who are terrorists, who will slaughter tens of thousands of their own people, why does anybody think that they would sign a piece of paper and honor it? Particularly when the belief system among the Islamists says you can do anything and say anything to the Westerners, even if it's not true. You will not be violating Islam if your purpose is to destroy them. Tafia.
Mark Levin.
We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
Count me among those who thinks Kristi Noem was doing an outstanding job at DHS on immigration and so much more. It's one of the most difficult departments to run. It's got so many responsibilities: TSA, FEMA, immigration, customs, Secret Service. I've been around a little while, and I served 8 years in the Reagan administration, as you know. I don't know of anybody who's done a better job on immigration than Kristi Noem. Again, I've met her twice socially. I've not been to any of these committee meetings that I've been assigned to. They've had 2, I believe, because I've been on radio at the time. There's been a conflict, but I'm just telling you objectively, watching, which is precisely why the Democrats are trying to take her out. And consider Mayorkas before her. I mean, compare the two. The Democrats thought he was fantastic, even though he was breaking the law at every turn. Don't get caught up in the mob. Don't get caught up in the media. Don't get caught up with the rhinos and the rest of them. Think for yourself, and I know you will. I really do think when you look at the facts, she's done a fantastic job. And if she were a Democrat woman, and was doing the opposite of what she's doing, like Mayorkas did, they'd be praising her and touting her for president. So I don't draw my conclusions through the eyes of the Democrats or the media or the rhinos or the others who cut and run. I never have, and I never will. Conversely, I've already sick and tired of Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. What a self-serving self-promoter. Absolutely. We'll have to deal with him. He will want to run for president. He thinks he's presidential material because he gives out millions of dollars to Islamists and all the rest of it. But we'll deal with that in due course. But there are things I want to talk about. Let's talk about this immigration issue. And there is a lot to talk about. Why are the Democrats fighting so hard for every single illegal alien to stay, to destroy ICE, to destroy the Border Patrol? Well, we know generally why, right? We've talked about this, because they want to increase their numbers in the House, because you actually count the number of people, which I think is unconstitutional, but we're talking about what's going on. You count the number of people, not the number of citizens, and here's what I wanted to read to you. It's about a year old from Peter Kirsanow at National Review, citing Center for Immigration Studies. The net effect of increases in both legal and illegal immigration in the 2020 census shifted 17 House seats and 17 electoral college votes, meaning to the Democrats, resulting in a net gain of 14 seats in blue states, 10 seats shifting from red states, and 4 from battleground states. That Democratic net gain is greater than the respective electoral votes of all but 10 states, in part because districts with high percentages of non-citizens tend to vote Democrat. Of the 24 districts where 1 in 5 adults is not an American citizen, 20 were won by Democrats in 2022. In contrast, the Democrat won in just 5 of 54 districts where 98% of adults are citizens. So there you see. If we were only counting citizens, and only citizens, Republicans would have a significant majority in the House of Representatives. Millions of illegal aliens have flooded the country during the Biden presidency. An indeterminate number, estimated to be in the hundreds of thousands, have been flown into the country by the Biden administration and deposited in certain jurisdictions. So this was intentional. Obviously. Increasingly, Democrats need be concerned about persuading American voters. They've gained electoral votes by the addition, strategic or otherwise, of illegal immigrants. That's the key. Over at Legal Insurrection, one of the great sites, Elizabeth Stauffer, in a recent interview with Fox News, former ICE acting director Jonathan Fahey said, Democrats fight each deportation, each one, as if it's a Democratic vote. As if it's a Democratic vote. Rarely have truer words been uttered. The American Redistricting Project, a nonprofit group focused on, quote, constitutional redistricting, unquote, an election transparently published in 2030 apportionment forecast on Tuesday. And what it revealed was remarkable. Based on the Census Bureau's July 1, 2025 population estimate, released Tuesday morning, I wasn't aware of this, the ARP apportionment map shows California losing 4 congressional seats. Illinois, Minnesota, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Wisconsin each lose 1 seat, for a total of 11 lost seats among blue states and purple states. Meanwhile, the map shows blue states and blue-leaning states. Meanwhile, the map shows red and purple states gaining those same 11 seats. Texas picks up 4 new seats. Florida picks up 2. Arizona, Georgia, Idaho, North Carolina, and Utah each get 1. Independent journalist Greg Price attached the ARP map to a post on X, and he noted, under this forecast, President Trump would have won the 2024 Electoral College 322 to 216. And even if Kamala had won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, Trump still would have won 280 to 258. This is one and only reason Democrats are fighting so hard to stop illegals from being deported. Their ability to continue winning elections is at stake. Without them, they'll burn down the country to keep them here. An ARP news release lists the districts that would be most effective. And under this forecast, President Trump would have won the 2024 Electoral College 322 to 216. The data is terrible news for Democrats, made worse by the fact that the migration of residents from blue states to red or purple states shows no signs of slowing. According to data released by the National Taxpayers Union Foundation 2 months ago, every 1 minute and 44 seconds, a taxpayer leaves California. For New York and Illinois, the times are 2 minutes and 23 seconds and 6 minutes and 4 seconds, respectively. These states are hemorrhaging residents. Moreover, another taxpayer leaves Washington state every 29 minutes and 55 seconds. Despite the absence of a state income tax for now, although one has been proposed, residents are voting with their feet, fleeing the evergreen states, steadily expanding tax and regulatory burden. These taxpayers are relocating to states with far more hospitable tax and regulatory climates. Florida, Texas, North Carolina, which welcome a new resident every 2 minutes and 9 seconds, 2 minutes and 53 seconds, and 6 minutes and 21 seconds, respectively. Now, a new release accompanying the data noted, in short, interstate movement isn't just a series of arrows in different directions. It's proof that Americans want lower taxes and limited government, and you can measure it with your watch. Got that, folks? That's heavy-duty stuff, isn't it, Mr. Producer? Heavy-duty stuff. And then there's this from Town Hall, Matt Vespa. You know what the common thread is here? But we have a deep dive into leftist mayhem over immigration and customs enforcement. What's the common thread? For some reason, these progressives think the law doesn't apply to them, their self-righteous disposition being a legal and physical shield from harm. That is precisely wrong, as Renee Good and Alex Preddy, two activists who've been shot and killed by immigration officers for interfering in law enforcement actions, sadly learned. It's also set the city of Minneapolis on fire. Kevin Bass posted an excellent Twitter thread about these incidents, and he found that two-thirds of these confrontations come from 9 counties. 9 counties out of thousands and thousands of counties. It's also in areas where local officials have stated they're refusing to cooperate with ICE. It's another chapter in how bad Democrats are at public policy. Again, you knew this already, but here are the numbers. He says, I analyzed public databases and media reporting on violent confrontations with ICE over the past year. Just 9 counties accounted for 2/3 of violent confrontations with ICE in America. This is twice all violent confrontations in the remaining 3,134 counties in America combined. A violent confrontation in these 9 counties was 590 times more likely than in any of these other 3,134 counties. He says, I plotted these 9 counties. I found all 9 counties are sanctuary jurisdictions run by Democrat politicians that resist immigration law enforcement. These violent confrontations are rare in states and cities where local officials cooperate with law enforcement. An analysis of violent confrontations between ICE agents and non-immigrants, protesters, journalists, bystanders, officers, U.S. citizens, during immigration enforcement operations. The key finding, extreme geographic concentration. The top 9 counties accounted for 63% of all violent confrontations with non-immigrants nationwide. A violent confrontation is 590 more times likely in the top 9 counties than in any of the other 3,134 counties. And he goes on, he breaks it down county by county by county. Starting with the worst, Cook County, Illinois, then Los Angeles, Hennepin County, Minnesota, New York County, New York, Multnomah County, Oregon, that's Portland, San Francisco, King County, Washington, Essex County, New Jersey, Denver County, Colorado, all 9 counties, jurisdictions with sanctuary policies that limit cooperation with the federal government. In just 13 minutes of this program, you now know more than anybody else. Oh, and about the racist ICE and Border Patrol, I took a look. DHS data based on the EEOC data gathering. As of today, the Border Patrol is 31.13% Latino. Excuse me, that's ICE. ICE is 31.13% Latino. The Border Patrol is 50.93%, 51% Latino. The Border Patrol is 43.9% white. There's a huge number of minorities in our immigration services defending this nation. A vast number of Latinos. I thought you'd want to know that, too. Now, these 9 counties, but they're not alone, of course. They're the main perpetrators. They don't want anybody deported, despite what they may say. I want you to listen to these 2024 criminal data statistics. That's right. I do a lot of research before this program because I believe you want to hear about it. 2024 ICE arrests with criminal histories just a year ago. They arrested 81,312 non-citizens with criminal convictions or pending charges, which accounted for over 71% of their total arrests. These 81,312 individuals had a combined total of 516,050 charges and or convictions, including 57,081 assaults, 18,579 sex offenses, 2,894, nearly 3,000 homicides. You understand? So if these people weren't here, these crimes wouldn't be committed. That is a fact. As of 2024, July, there were over 425,000 non-citizens with criminal convictions on ICE's non-detained docket, a database of people facing deportation but not in ICE custody, okay? That's 425,000 illegals and non-citizens with criminal convictions that ICE has yet to bring into custody. That is what they are trying to do all over the country, including in Minneapolis. In 2024, 21,304 non-U.S. citizens were sentenced in the federal system, with 88.7% of them being illegal aliens. 88.7% of 21,000 non-citizens were sentenced in our federal system, taking up space. Now get this caveat, which is crucial. The figures represent individuals identified by federal law enforcement primarily at the border or during interior enforcement. Do not include all crimes committed by illegal aliens. So this doesn't even include the universe of all the crimes committed by illegal aliens, just the extent to which they can actually gather the information and put it in the databases. It's a big problem. And when these brave men and women in ICE go out there to try and apprehend these people, look what's done to them. The Democrat Party wants to shut down the entire government, but especially the TSA to interfere with your flights, FEMA to interfere with your federal support, and God knows what else, to quote-unquote reform ICE. Some of them want to defund ICE. Sounds a lot. The George Floyd riots and all the rest of it. Just remember, they're defending illegal aliens, many of whom are criminals and convicts in their own home countries and in our country. And so many people, they don't even know who they are, and they don't care who they are. But they're counting them in support of additional House seats. It's all about power. My book on power, one of the best books I've ever written. Now, what about these protesters? What about these protesters? First Amendment rights, right to assemble. Really? That's for sure. You have a First Amendment right to assemble, a right to protest. What you don't have a right to do is riot, commit acts of violence, destroy public property, assault officers, or obstruct officers from doing their jobs. That you don't have a right to do. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. This guy, Alex Preddy, he spat on an ICE officer. Spitting is considered a physical contact, a physical assault. And by the way, that goes for you too in most states. Spitting involves contact with bodily fluids, which can be interpreted as a health threat, but it's considered an assault. It doesn't have to be with a fist or a stick or anything else. Simple assault can lead to up to 1 year in federal prison, while more severe offenses or those resulting in bodily harm can carry higher penalties, including up to 8 years or even more if a dangerous weapon is involved. The statute covers any federal employee, including ICE, Border Patrol, FBI, others, or engaged in their official duties. Engaged in their official duties. So Alex Preddy assaulted a federal ICE agent. That's a crime. In that first incident, what else did he do? He violated 18 U.S.C. 1361. What's that? Damage to U.S. government property. If the damage to U.S. government property exceeds $1,000, it's a felony. Up to 10 years in prison and heavy fines. If the damage is $1,000 or less, it's a misdemeanor. Up to 1 year in prison and fines. So he did that too. So what did the ICE agents do? The guy was losing his mind. He was out of control. He spat on an officer. He's using the F word, challenging them to attack him. Then he kicked the vehicle twice, broke the back light. So he committed assault, and he committed destruction of federal property. They let him go. They let him go. 18 U.S.C. Section 111, assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees. Whoever forcibly assaults, resists, opposes, impedes, intimidates, or interferes with any person designated in Section 1114, that includes ICE, while engaged in or on account of the performance of their official duties, shall, where the acts in violation of this section constitute only simple assault, be fined, and they have the amount. Enhanced penalty if the commission of any acts described, if they use a potentially deadly weapon. Now, what if you're conspiring to do these things? Conspiracy to obstruct federal law enforcement is also a federal crime. 18 U.S.C. Section 371 or Section 372. Two or more people agreeing to impede, injure, or interfere with federal officers. Impede or interfere. You can put injure aside. With federal officers or investigations through force, threats, or corruption. Includes actions to prevent officers from discharging their duties. Punishable by up to 5 to 6 years in prison. The government must prove, 1, an agreement existed, 2, the defendant voluntarily joined it, and 3, an overt act was committed to further the conspiracy. So what are we talking about here? Remember that Fox digital piece that we talked about? The extraordinary amount of detailed evidence of these signal communications. Signal communications. Where they were conspiring to obstruct law enforcement. That was a federal offense. Once they carried out those duties, those activities, that was a federal offense. So I want you to know about these things. Now, again, the shooting that took place of Alex Preddy, I've given my opinion on that multiple times now in the course of 48 hours or so. There's an investigation underway, as there always is when there's a shooting of state, local, or federal law enforcement. And no difference here. And that will determine what took place. But I'm just giving you the context for things. And of course, none of this would be happening but for two factors. Number one, the Democrats, the Biden regime, and the congressional Democrats let all these people into the country in violation of numerous parts of the immigration law. And you know what? After the break, I'll tell you what parts those are. And number two, but for the gaslighting of these people and these organizations under an umbrella organization called the Democrat Party, particularly in these 9 counties, by a Democrat mayor by the name of Fry and a Democrat governor who wanted to be vice president by the name of Walz. And it occurs in California under Newsom, in L.A. under Bass. It occurs in New York under Hochul, and now, of course, under Mandami, and there are others. And there are others. And so the Republican rhino reaction to this, Republican in name only, their reaction to this is, hey, We've gone as far as we can go. I even heard one of these commentators say it. We've reached the end of our political string. I've never seen anything like this. Such cowards. Such buffoons. Well, then it's over. If we are only going to try to deport violent, criminal, illegal aliens, then it's over. Because there will be millions and millions of people here, illegally. They will have de facto amnesty, if not actual amnesty at some point. And certainly their children, if the Supreme Court doesn't rule that this preposterous birthright citizenship is not constitutional, but I fear the reverse, the opposite. Then the Republicans, we can never win. I am not going to allow these rhinos to do this. Under media pressure, under Democrat Party pressure, shutting down the government, what have you. They fight like hell for their power. And they fight like hell before they give up 1 inch or one illegal immigrant. Why some of these Republicans are already wetting themselves.